Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, all close to Srila Prabhupada. So today we are very excited to start a new book in the Bhakti Sastri titled the uh, Nectar of Instruction. So what you see here are the two covers. The one on the left is an older cover which has the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami in the Radha Damodar temple. And the one on the right is the cover for the newer editions, which essentially is Rupa and Sanatan sitting under a tree and reading and writing Vaishnav literature. In the middle is the room of Srila Prabhupada in the Radha Damodar temple. That room is still there, actually two rooms across the courtyard. In one room, Srila Prabhupada would sit and write, and it said that he would look over at the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami and draw inspiration from him how to preach Krishna consciousness. This is an artist's conception of Rupa Goswami actually instructing Srila Prabhupada while he was. This is before he came to the West, before he established his ISKCON, while he was planning the seeds of ISKCON. So we'll begin with speaking a little bit about the author, Srila Rupa Goswami. So as we know, the six Goswamis were intimate followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and served him with their life and soul. However, Srila Rupa Goswami was widely considered as the leader of all Vaishnavas and the leader of all the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in all respects. Right? Because it said that he understood the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right? Manobhishtam. In the Mangalacharan prayers, we glorify that that Rupa Goswami understands Manobhishtam, the mind of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore he is able to give it to us. On two occasions, he had received personal instruction from Mahaprabhu. So one was at the Dashwamegh Ghat at Prayag, and the second was when he was living with Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. In Prayag it was a few days, I think 10 days in Prayag, and in Puri it was a longer time, more than a month there. And both times he was able to get a lot of personal instructions, which basically became the basis of all the literature that Rupa Goswami wrote later on. So it is said that the seeds of this book, Upadeśāmṛta, were planted in the hearts of Rupa Goswami when he was serving and observing the various stages of ecstasy. So later on, when Mahaprabhu went into very, very advanced stages of devotion, then Rupa Goswami was observing him, and earlier on he was learning from him by his instructions. So Rupa Goswami considers his elder brother Sanatana Goswami to be his guru, and he himself was the Shiksha guru of another very, very prominent Goswami, Jiva Goswami, who has written many books and played a very critical role in the preaching movement of Mahaprabhu. So if you see that the four books that we did in Bhakti Sastri, two are written by Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna, Upadeśāmṛta was manifested by Krishna, and two books are written by Srila Rupa Goswami. Right? So in his spiritual identity, Rupa Goswami is considered to be Rupa Manjari, a close associate of Srimati Radharani. So since Mahaprabhu came in the mood of Radharani, the associates of Radharani also came along with Mahaprabhu. And Rupa Manjari, who is an associate of Radharani, came as Rupa Goswami. And in a way, if you look at the four books that we do in Bhakti Sastri, two of them are by Krishna and two of them are by Srimati Radharani, or in the mood of Radharani, right? So Bhagavad Gita and Upadeśāmṛta, Krishna, and Upadeśāmṛta, Nectar of Instruction, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar Devotion by Rupa Goswami, who is Manjri Bhav, who has come as the associate of Srimati Radharani and is therefore carrying the mood of Radharani. Right? So in this way, Srila Prabhupada gave us a complete balance. Rupa Goswami is considered to be Abhideya Acharya. Right? As we make progress in devotion, it begins with Sambandha, Gyan, and Sambandha is understanding the relationship, and Sanatana Goswami is the Acharya of that. So books like Bhagavad Gita and Upadeśāmṛta are in the category of Sambandha because they help us understand who is Krishna and what is our relationship with him. And books like the Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction are in the category of Abhidaya, which is that having understood the relationship, how do we actually practice, how do we live in that relationship. Right? Raghunath Das Goswami's Prayojanacharya, which talks about the more exalted subject of what happens when we actually achieve the goal of our Abhidaya. So the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami is at Radha Damodar temple, and as I mentioned, is there in the front cover of the older versions of NOI. Little bit about the history of the Nectar of Instruction. So Mahaprabhu himself only left 8 verses in the Shashrashtakam, but he gave instructions to many prominent devotee scholars. And amongst these instructions, there are 4 personalities that have received extensive instructions from Mahaprabhu. So there is Rupa Goswami, who received many instructions on the science of practicing bhakti, and that is why he is considered to be the Abhidaya Acharya. Sanatana Goswami also received many instructions from Mahaprabhu in the Tattva and also Prayojan. He also received instructions on a lot of the more intimate esoteric aspects of bhakti. Then Prakashananda Saraswati was actually a Mayavadi sannyasi in Kashi, and by the instructions of Mahaprabhu, he also became a devotee. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a great scholar, and again, by the instructions of Mahaprabhu, he became a devotee. So these 4 instructions or sets of instructions, one is addressing Mayavad, one is addressing impersonalism, one is talking about Sambandh and Prayojan, the relationship with Krishna, and one set talking about Abhidaya, how to practice those instructions, were actually compiled by Bhakti Vinod Thakur in a book called The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is available today. Srila Prabhupada translated it. Now, essentially, these teachings have been encapsulated in 11 verses by Rupa Goswami. Just like Mahaprabhu, he encapsulates his mood in the 8 verses of the Shashrashtakam, Rupa Goswami, understanding the mind of Mahaprabhu, is able to take these vast teachings and encapsulate it in just the 8 verses. Prabhupada wrote the preface of the NOI in the Krishna Balram temple, and this is in Vrindavan Ramanreti, on September 20th, 1975. Right, and the day that he wrote it was Vishwarupa Mahamotsav, right? So appearance day of Vishwarupa. Then the book was actually published very shortly afterwards. Prabhupada wrote it, gave it to the publishers, and in a matter of 3 months, the whole thing was written and published. So on the 1st January of 1976, Prabhupada was at the Juhu temple, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj presented the book. I think it was the smaller books were called pocket books. Prabhupada was very happy to receive it, and he said, "How many books have been published?" And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said that 10,000. And then he said, "Why only 10,000?" And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said that the BBT, so which is the Bhakti Vedanta book trusts. So these were the printing agency of ISKCON. They said, well, it's for practicing devotees. And then Prabhupada said, no, this is not for practicing devotees, it's for everyone. And then he asked for 100,000 copies to be printed. And this was one of the very popular books that was distributed very, very easily. Because as we see later on, that unlike other books, the Nectar of Instruction is not just for practicing devotees, but even for aspiring devotees. So it was written before the Nectar of Devotion. Right? The Nectar of Devotion is considered to be an extended presentation of the science of bhakti, which is summarized in the Nectar of Instruction. So while the Nectar of Devotion is meant for practicing devotees, the Prabhupada clearly says in the purport of Nectar of Devotion that this is meant for practicing devotees. The Nectar of Instruction is meant even for those who are just interested in becoming devotees. So the word Upadesh means instructions and Amrit means nectar. Right? So essentially the word Upadeśāmṛta means the nectar of instructions. Right? And the instructions are how to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. Right? And the reason it's called nectar is because any advancement in Krishna consciousness is imperishable. It is Amrit. It exists forever. In the Upadeśāmṛta, we had studied how it is important to be aware of both Vidya and Avidya. Vidya was spirituality and Avidya was material morality. The reason it was called Avidya is that it was more in the material context. But it was said that one should follow Devi Varnashram, right? One should follow Varnashram and then make spiritual advancements. One should follow morality and then make spiritual advancement. So that was the lesson in Upadeśāmṛta. Nectar of Instruction actually expands on that lesson. Right? So what is told in the Upadeśāmṛta is done in the Nectar of Instruction. The Nectar of Instruction teaches us both. It teaches us morality as well as spirituality. And by reading NOI, we can understand why Upadeśāmṛta is saying what it is saying. Why is morality important as a precursor or a concomitant practice of spirituality? While the book starts from a very basic level of morality, it gives us the A to Z of spiritual advancement, all the way from Shraddha to the highest level of prema. Right? In the preface, Srila Prabhupada says that the Nectar of Instruction is the first instructions for neophytes. And this is because the initial verses are more about morality than spirituality. And then the later verses become very advanced and difficult to comprehend, and that is okay. Prabhupada also does not give extensive commentary about it because it's put in there to give us a glimpse of the goal. Right? So by practicing the first set of verses, we become qualified to experience the later set of verses. Srila Prabhupada concludes the preface by saying that to achieve the highest success in life is by becoming a Goswami and then a pure devotee of the Lord. One must follow the instructions of Upadeśāmṛta, which has been given by Srila Rupa Goswami. And Prabhupada makes this distinction between a Goswami and a pure devotee. Right? Because a Goswami is more on the platform of morality. One who is in control of the senses. Go is senses and Swami is control. So Goswami is one who is in control of the senses, which essentially is achieved by following the principles of morality. But the arc that Upadeśāmṛta takes us through is from Goswami to Shuddha Bhakta. So Upadeśāmṛta constitutes the first instructions for neophyte devotees. One must follow the instructions very strictly. Then it will be easier to make one's life successful. So Prabhupada makes 2 points. It is the first instruction and it must be followed strictly. Right? So one must not consider morality to be an end, but one must understand that it is the first instruction. Sometimes, especially in India, devotees have the challenge that there are people who are living very Brahmanical lives, very strongly in the mode of goodness, but for them that is the goal. They will not proceed beyond that. They will not advance to the stages of bhakti. So Prabhupada says you should understand that they are the first instruction. And then secondly, he says that just thinking it is the first instruction, one should not be cavalier about it. That these are first instructions, and maybe in 1 month I will move to other instructions. I'll discard them, because really speaking, even to follow the first instructions, even to follow the first 4 verses of the Nectar of Instruction, it takes one's lifetime to do that. And so Prabhupada says that one must follow it strictly. And Prabhupada discouraged jumping to reading more advanced books or topics. And sometimes people, they straight away jump to the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, or they will read more esoteric philosophical explanations. So Prabhupada says instead of getting purified, one becomes putrefied. And putrefied means contaminated, because one is listening to the esoteric rasa dance pastimes of Krishna, and one has still got lust in their heart, and they're not going to get purified. They're going to become more lusty. They'll become putrefied. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada is giving us the instruction that according to one's level of advancement, one should read books suitable for that level of advancement. Right? So it's not that one should just remain at reading the preliminary books. But what Prabhupada is saying, as you make advancement, you then read the more advanced books. And Prabhupada gave us the Bhagavatam also, right? He commented on the Rasa Dance in the 10th canto. Right? So he gave it because he wanted us to read it. But according to our adhikar, according to our level of advancement. If not, instead of getting purified, we'll become putrefied. So some of the key themes that will emerge in the Nectar of Instruction, especially in the first set of verses, is the importance of mind and sense control, importance of attitude. And then Prabhupada also talks about the purpose of ISKCON. Then relationship between guru and disciple, importance of association with devotees, sadhu sangha, and talk about different grades of devotees, neophyte, advanced, highly exalted, what is the behavior, what is their qualification. And then the stages and development of bhakti. Again, just like the neophyte devotees, there is the early stages of bhakti, and then it matures into more advanced ecstatic state of bhakti. So speaking a little bit more about this topic of advancing from morality to spiritual perfection, as I noted earlier on, the initial verses are more about morality than spirituality. The later verses are very advanced and difficult to comprehend, right? Especially if you look at 9, 10 and 11. And Rupa Goswami has given it understanding that this is a beginner's book, because he nevertheless wants us to get a goal of a glimpse of the goal. So we may not comprehend it, we may not understand it, but we can become aware of it. Also, by practicing what is instructed in the verses, in the first set of verses, one becomes qualified to experience what is revealed in the later verses. Okay? An important point, and this is we also studied in Upadeśāmṛta, that the earlier verses are endeavor and the latter verses are mercy. Right? So by endeavor, one can make oneself qualified. But one gets awarded Shuddha Bhakti only by the mercy of Krishna, Guru and Vaishnavas. So that's why there is not much that is spoken about the more advanced stages of bhakti, because there is nothing that you can do to attain it. What you can do is to make progress in the earlier stages of bhakti, which makes you qualified to get the mercy, which then is bestowed in terms of the more advanced stages of bhakti. But Rupa Goswami gives them all because he wants us to understand that bhakti is it's a play between endeavor and mercy. And it's not that in the initial stages it is all endeavor. There also the component of mercy is very strong. Mercy of Guru, mercy of Vaishnavas, but there is a component of endeavor also. But in the more advanced stages, the component of mercy becomes more prominent. So the book starts from Sadhana Vedi Bhakti, it goes to Raghunatha Sadhana. So, and we'll do this later on, I'm just giving a glimpse. Sadhana Vedi is the early stages of Bhakti. Raghunatha Sadhana is the penultimate stage of Bhakti, and all the way till Bhava and Prem, which is the perfected stage of Bhakti. So the mission and supervision. So Prabhupada says that the Krishna consciousness movement is the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread the cult of bhakti. And some of these words have become, they have got more negative connotation now. And this is Prabhupada speaking in the 70s, and at that time cult was more in the sense of cultivation. Right now, cult has more negative connotation, that the cult of whatever, people who are supremacists or cult of black magic, what it is. But just to keep true to the verbiage that Prabhupada used, so it is to spread the cult of bhakti, to deliver the love of God, the change or the chanting of the holy name. Right. So more specifically, Prabhupada says understanding the love of Radha Krishna. So this is something that is very specific to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, not exclusive to Gaudiya Vaishnava. The other sampradayas also, the Nimarka, they also follow this. But in Gaudiya Vaishnava, this is specific that more than the worship of Krishna is the worship of the love of Radha for Krishna. Right? And the love of Radha for Krishna is essentially the highest form of bhakti. So that is the aspiration of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is to be able to serve Krishna in the mood of the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. Right? And the mood is devoid of Aishwarya Bhav. Right? And like Shri Sampradaya, the mood is very strongly in the mood of opulence. Here the mood is more madhurya, intimate. And Mahaprabhu wanted his followers to write literatures to help people understand this love of Radha and Krishna. So based on this, Srila Prabhupada makes the bold statement that the Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Sri Rupa Goswami. Right? Because Rupa Goswami, he takes this mission of Mahaprabhu, and based on that he has written books and given instructions. And Srila Prabhupada, he has established ISKCON under the purview of Rupa Goswami. So he has taken the instructions of Rupa Goswami and used that to establish ISKCON. So that's why he makes the statement that ISKCON is conducted under the supervision of Sri Rupa Goswami. So Sri Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities he gave us this Upadeśāmṛta to follow. So just like Mahaprabhu left behind 8 verses known as the Shikshashtaka, Rupa Goswami gave us the Upadeśāmṛta so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. The 11 verses in the Upadeśāmṛta. So this is the mission and supervision. What is the mission? That we all become pure devotees. What kind of pure devotees? In the mood of Srimati Radharani serving Krishna. How do we become that? Under the supervision of the instructions of the 6 Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada and the Acharya. Right? That's the mission and supervision. Prabhupada speaks about how Krishna consciousness is a science. He calls it a science because the nature of science is that if a process is repeated, it gives the predictable and repeatable results. Like we have experiments in science and we keep doing them over and over again, we'll keep getting the same results. And that's why it's called scientific. So the process that is given by Srila Rupa Goswami is also scientific. That when we follow the instructions given by Rupa Goswami, we will promote ourselves to the mode of goodness. There is no ambiguity about it. It's a scientific process. That we follow the instructions, we will reach the result that is promised by Rupa Goswami. And when we reach the mode of goodness, there the meditation is to repeatedly act as per the injunctions. Okay? So this repeatedly is a defining characteristic of the mode of goodness, which means doing the same thing over and over and over. Right? So this is an important aspect of sadhana. So Prabhupada says that this desire for change is a symptom of the mode of passion. And the aspiration for the devotees in the beginning is to reach the stage of goodness. And the characteristic of goodness is to follow the same process over and over again. Right? And what does that do? This suppresses the tendency for whimsical change and encourages the desire to do that which is prescribed. So the nature of sadhana is that it is prescriptive. It has injunctions and prohibitions, the do's and the don'ts. And when one strictly follows them, then the nature of the mind, which is to devolve in the mode of passion and look for change, that tomorrow let me do something else and let me try something else, then it becomes whimsical. That tendency is suppressed. So for example, devotees are encouraged to get up at the same time in Brahma Muhurat, to chant the same number of rounds of the same mantra. It's not that Monday you chant one mantra, Tuesday you chant another mantra. Sometimes you see that in people in India, that when they're acting whimsically, they have all these different things. Monday I chant this mantra, Tuesday I chant this mantra, Wednesday I'm a vegetarian, Thursday I'm an eggetarian. So all these are symptoms of a flighty mind, the mode of passion. Mode of goodness is uniformity. They chant the same number of rounds, 16 rounds, chant the same mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, sing the same song. That doesn't mean you sing one song only, but essentially sing the songs in the same mood. Right? So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that regulation is a symptom of the mode of goodness. So by practicing this regulation, the devotees, they aspire to ascend to the mode of goodness and use that as a launching platform to advance in spirituality. So the devotees do not cultivate the mode of goodness as a goal. Right? So unlike Smarta Brahmins, for them the mode of goodness is a goal. Even they do the same thing. They submit to a lot of regulation. They will get up early in the morning, take a bath, do Sandhya Vandanam, eat sattvic food. But for them, that is the goal. But for devotees, it's a means to an end. Because even though the mode of goodness is exalted, but it is still a material mode. But what the devotees do is that they leverage the sense control that the mode of goodness gives them into redirecting the senses to the service of Krishna. Right? So that is the difference between how the devotees and others aspire for the mode of goodness. Attitude is important. Prabhupada makes this point that advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. Now, there are so many enabling factors for one to make spiritual advancement. Taking shelter of a guru, being guided by a Shiksha guru, living in a holy place, chanting the holy name. But all that comes together is what is your attitude towards it? One may live in a holy dham, but one may live in an enjoying mentality. Right? Now people go to Vrindavan and they take darshan in one temple, and then they'll go to a restaurant and eat good food over there. And some of them will actually even go there and enjoy in more rajasic and tamasic ways. So they may be in a holy place, but the attitude is not that of service. Or somebody may take shelter of a guru, and the guru gives them 10 instructions, and the disciples say, okay, out of this 10, only 2 work for me, and rejects the other 8. Right? So externally the factors are there, the enabling factors are there, but the attitude is not there, right? So all these enabling factors are predicated on the attitude of one wanting to be favorable to Krishna consciousness, right? And that should be the primary object of introspection. What is my attitude right now? When I'm studying Bhakti Sastri, when I'm studying the books, when I'm dealing with devotees, when I'm chanting, what is my attitude? Is it favorable to Krishna consciousness? And without proper attitude, progress is not possible. Right? Example is, initiation, Guru Padashraya is considered to be a very important step in making spiritual progress. But then people may take initiation for wrong reasons. Some people like to say, I have a guru, just for the prestige and position. Some people actually take initiation because at the time of initiation, the guru takes away your karma. So they take it for this purpose, that let my karma be expunged. Right? Some just take it under pressure. The family says, this is our family guru, everybody takes initiation, you take initiation. Right? So these are wrong attitude. Some disciples, they choose very advanced gurus, thinking that the more advanced the guru is, they themselves will become more advanced. Some will choose gurus based on fame, that this guru has thousands of disciples. So I'm a disciple of a famous guru. Sometimes they take gurus that they know will not be close to them. So then they don't have to worry too much about many instructions or accountability to the guru. Right? So the real attitude in taking shelter of the guru is the ability to follow the instructions of the guru and serve the guru. So everything for us to make spiritual advancement has been given. Ultimately, it depends on how we take to it, right? And the nectar of instruction is training us in that aspect. It is training us to control our senses so that we take to things in the proper way. We don't take things in a whimsical way. So that's how it's laying the foundation for future spiritual advancement. So we'll look at how the NOI is divided. Like I said, there are only 11 verses. And it takes us from Shraddha to Prem. So in Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami talks about the stages of Bhakti. That once Bhakti begins from Shraddha or faith. This is soft faith, theoretical faith. I have some faith that spiritual advancement is important. that Krishna is an object of service. So this is spoken about in verses 1, 2 and 3. Then based on that faith, one now begins to associate with others who have similar faith. This is sadhu-sang, right? This is spoken in verses 4, 5 and 6. Right? Now based on the association of devotee, one actually begins to practice devotional service. This is bhajana kriya. As one practices devotional services, one's contaminations are diminished. This is anartha nivritti. As the contaminations are diminished, one's faith becomes stronger. So Shraddha now becomes Nishtha. Shraddha was soft faith. Nishtha is strong faith. And now one begins to enjoy the process. So Ruchi. So this is all spoken in text 7. Then the next stage is Asakti. So Asakti is even more concentrated faith. From Shraddha to Nishtha to Ashakti. Ashakti is unshakable faith. That appears in text 8. And then one advances to the more spontaneous stages of devotion, which is Bhava and Prema. So the first 8 stages are sadhana, that is practicing, and the last 3 verses are prayojan. They are the experience. What happens when you practice in this way and you get the mercy? Then bhava and prema appear. Right. So the first 7 verses are Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, right? All the way from Shraddha to Ruchi. The 8th verse is Raghunag bhakti, right? And we'll study more about it, just giving you an overview. And we studied about it in Nectar devotion also. And the final 3 verses, 9, 10 and 11 are ecstatic devotion, bhava and prema. So speaking about the Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, in the preface it's noted that the goal of Krishna consciousness and the means to attain is to reach perfection in Krishna consciousness. Right? And one must follow the instructions of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan by controlling the mind and senses as instructed by Rupa Goswami. Right? So text 1 talks about controlling the 6 urges. I will just do a very quick summary of all the 11 verses. So text 1 talks about controlling the 6 urges. So this is a prerequisite for spiritual life, the necessity of controlling the mind and senses. Right? And logically it makes sense that if one has uncontrolled senses, right, one is hankering after intoxication or sex or meat eating, difficult to practice bhakti. So that is the very first, is the controlling of the 6 urges. What are the obstacles that come when one is aspiring to control the 6 urges? Because it's by no means easy. But Rupa Goswami doesn't just give us an instruction and leave us over there. He also talks about what are the obstacles that one should be aware of. The text 3 talks about what can help us in making this journey. Right? So the 6 principles that help us make progress. So the first 4 there are 6 talked about in each of the first 4 verses. First talks about the 6 urges. The second talks about the 6 obstacles. The third talks about the 6 aids to devotional service. Text 4 talks about the 6 loving exchanges between devotees. Right? So while the first 3 talks about what and how, text 4 talks about the more practical aspect of it, which is that the first 3 verses can be done only in the association of devotees. And it teaches us what is the proper way of associating with devotees, the 6 loving exchanges. The text 4 is further expanded into 5 and 6. So text 4 talks about the general association between devotees. Text 5 talks about association according to the level of advancement of devotees. So what kind of Vaishnava should one take shelter of as a guru? What one should give mercy? What one should treat as a peer? Right? So essentially associating according to the levels of advancement. And text 6 talks about special case of devotees who are mostly about guru, just pure devotees, but how should one associate with one's spiritual master. Text 7 is the chanting of the holy name, right? And if you remember that all the way from Anartha Nivriti to the stage of Nishta Ruchi, all of them come in this verse, right? So essentially, this verse is talking about the potency of the holy name to make rapid advancement. Now, the second section talks about the Raghunag Sadhana Bhakti, which is spontaneous devotional service in practice. Right? So earlier on, it was regulated devotional service in practice. That one followed the rules and regulation. Then, as one makes advancement, it is still in practice, it is still in sadhana, but now one develops a genuine attachment to the rules and regulations. Right? So this is the highest stage of sadhana bhakti, and then the last section talks about bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. So text 9 talks about the hierarchy of the material and the spiritual world, and it establishes Radha Kund as the topmost place. Right? So here now we see the more esoteric aspect of Radha Bhav being presented by Rupa Goswami. Text 9 talks about the hierarchy of different human beings. Right? So it describes the hierarchy of human beings within the creation, and again correlates it back to Radha Kund as the residence for the topmost human beings. Radha Kund is the topmost place, and it is occupied by the topmost jivas, right? Humans, jivas, devotees, right? And text 11 concludes by giving the glory of Radha Kund, right? It perfectly illustrates the point that the cultivation of spiritual life is a gradual progress. In the same way as one is meant to read the first 9 cantos of the Bhagavatam before approaching the 10th, one must assimilate the first 10 verses of the Nectar of Instruction before aspiring to live in Radha Kund. If one fails to do so, one is sure to misunderstand the instruction and ruin one's spiritual life. Prabhupada is very strict about jumping over one's adhikar. So conclusion is that the Nectar of Instruction teaches us that the highest success in life is to first become a Goswami and then a pure devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada notes that Vaishnavas are generally known as Goswamis because their senses are controlled by constant engagement in Krishna consciousness. And this is a point that we will read as we go deeper into the verses. So this is why the Vaishnavas are considered higher than Brahmanas and caste Goswamis. Caste Goswamis are like the descendants of Rupa Sanatan Goswami. Rupa Sanatan Goswami were genuine Goswamis. They had control on their senses, but then it became a title. And to this day, the descendants maintain the title regardless of what their practice is. Right? So Prabhupada makes that distinction that the Vaishnavas, by active engagement in Krishna consciousness, achieve sense control, and that is why they are genuine Goswamis, not those who are simply striving to control the senses, which are the Brahmanas, or the caste Goswamis, who are just have the hereditary lineage. And finally, Prabhupada's instruction is, in order to do so, one must follow the instruction known as Upadeśāmṛta given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the introduction and preface. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.